So when I was at school, I was told that careers were like ladders and that my plan should be really simple and straightforward. Work hard, get good grades, choose the right subjects, go to university, find an opportunity in a company, work hard again, get promoted. But in reality, careers don't work like that. They're messy, they're unclear, and they're punctuated by moments that are really uncomfortable. Moments when you don't know what to do, you don't know what's coming next, when there aren't any answers. And there isn't a guidebook, right? There's no syllabus, and there's no one to tell you that you're on the right track or that you're going in the right direction. And how you respond to those moments is key. And that response has shaped my entire career. So it started for me in a room full of broken computers. I'd come out of university with an archaeology degree, and then obviously decided that I wanted a career in computing. So I got myself an interview on an IT support desk, and I went along to the interview, and this cheery lady showed me downstairs into the basement, into this storage room, which I can only describe as like a graveyard for old desktop PCs. And she showed me into the room, and she said, "You've got 2 hours. If you can make 20 working PCs out of that lot, you've got the job." And then she left. And I stood there, and I remember thinking, I have absolutely no idea how to do this. So this was back in the 1990s, so I'm going to need you all to work with me a little bit here and really use your imagination. At school, they didn't teach computer science. They didn't even teach basic computing. My school had one PC that was shared between everyone. Less than a third of UK households had a PC in them. And the internet was still in its infancy. It wasn't like it is now. There was no Reddit. There was no YouTube, no ChatGPT. Mobile phones as we know them didn't exist. There was no reaching into your pocket for this handy helper that could guide you through it. Just a room full of broken PCs. And I'd never built a PC. I'd never even taken the lid off one. I didn't know what the insides of them looked like. So after a couple of minutes of panicking, I got stuck in. I opened up a PC, opened up the one next to it, and I began pulling bits out. I didn't know what they were, didn't know what they did. I'd take them from one PC and I'd put them into the other one. Then I'd turn that PC on and see what happened. And on some of the PCs did nothing. Some of them made some weird noises. One of them, when I turned it on, went bang and filled the room with black smoke. But eventually, a couple of them worked. And I just carried on doing the same thing. And by the end of the 2 hours, I hadn't managed to make 20 working PCs. But I had made 17. And that was enough to get me the job. And looking back on it now, that was a moment that mattered for me and for my career because it started my career in tech. But it wasn't because I had a plan. It wasn't because I had expertise or had knowledge. It was because I just got stuck in and tried something, even though it felt overwhelming and scary. And later on, when I taught myself to code, it was much the same thing. This time it wasn't neatly packaged in 2 hours in a room. This went on for years, lots of little challenges, trying to get code to work, banging your head against the screen going, why doesn't it? I don't understand. But these things, they taught me something. And they taught me that when you're faced with that situation where the future's unclear, you don't know the answers, you can't see what's coming, the thing that matters most is just getting started, just giving it a go. And once I'd learnt that, this began to show up later in my career as well. So I've been CTO at GiftGaff, who are a UK mobile company, for the past 9 years. And the most interesting thing that I've learnt in that role is that teams don't slow down because of a lack of expertise, or a lack of knowledge, or a lack of skill. They slow down because they lose their nerve. They start waiting. They wait for approval. They wait for someone to tell them what to do. They wait for the plan to be perfectly clear. And that kind of feels sensible, particularly if the decisions you're making are high stakes. But it quietly kills momentum. It slows everyone down. Now, in software development, there's a concept called deployment, and it's very simple. It's just where you take all of the changes that you've made to your code and you put them live. You put them out there in the real world for users to interact with. And back then, lots of organizations, GiftGaff included, did this really rarely. And they did it rarely because it was full of risk. Things can go wrong. And when they do go wrong, it's really public. People notice, right? People get kind of annoyed if their mobile phones don't work. So they'd store up all the changes and they'd deploy them in big packages once a month, once every couple of months. And they'd do it at odd times of the day. They'd do it at 2 a.m. because then no one would notice if it went wrong. But that waiting to deploy was slowing everything down. So at GiftGaff, we decided that we were going to deliberately change that we were going to deploy changes whenever they were ready. If that meant we deployed every day in the middle of the day, fine. If we had to deploy 100 times a day, fine. We weren't going to wait anymore. And if you're studying computer science, you might think that this is a technical issue that we solved. But it wasn't. Like, the tech's quite straightforward. It was well understood. It was a psychological issue. We had to change the mindset of the entire organization to stop the organization waiting. And we realized that what we had to create was an organization that rewarded learning. And that meant people needed to be trusted. It means mistakes had to be expected and planned for. And learning had to be quick, and we had to adapt to things fast. And that was hard. But the difference that it made to the people and to the organization was profound. So the teams that lent into that change, that got started even when they didn't really know what the answer was, they thrived. And a couple of years later, the individuals that were on those teams found themselves with a whole new set of skills. And those skills were in much more demand in the market. So in many cases, it kick-started the next stage of their career. The teams that resisted, that hung back, that waited for other people to find the answers, they stalled and they got outpaced. The organization as a whole was having reliability challenges at the start of this. By the end of it, reliability was through the roof. We had years when we had no downtime at all. Teams made changes quicker than ever. And the lead time to deploy those changes went down to minutes. So you could find a bug or an issue, and you could fix it the same day. And that meant the experience that all of our members had was much better. And for me, I came to the realization that one of the great privileges of leadership is to have the power to create more moments that matter for more people. By removing that safety net and forcing our teams to remove that safety net, we gave them the opportunity to step into the unknown and see what they were truly capable of. And most of them surprised themselves. So, why does this matter? Why am I telling you this? Well, at the moment, we're going through a similar transformation, not in a room full of broken computers, but in the world at large. There's loads of noise at the moment about careers and AI. What jobs are going to change? What jobs aren't going to exist anymore? And AI is fundamentally changing knowledge work at the moment. And in software development, we're in the vanguard of that because software development is inherently suited to the application of AI. It's a purely digital pursuit with fast feedback loops in it. Code compiles or it doesn't. Code runs or it doesn't. Automated tests pass or fail. It is changing. And the way we react to that is critical. A couple of years ago, I remember one of the developers in our teams was doing an interview for a role he had. And he gave the chap that came in our standard coding challenge. And he solved it in 10 seconds. Because he was using an AI tool. He was using Copilot. And the interviewer came straight out of that interview and came up to me and demanded that we roll out Copilot to our entire developer community. And at that point, the tech was kind of clunky. It didn't work brilliantly. We weren't sure whether it was going to be the next big thing or just a fancy autocomplete. But what that developer had realized was that the answer wasn't important. It was important that we get started with it, that we start to learn about it, explore it, experiment with it, find the edges, find what it was good at. And a few months later, all of our team's productivity went up by 25%. But we've got to be realistic about it. That agency that you have, that ability to move without reassurance, is a uniquely human thing at the moment. But we're seeing more and more agency in AI. We're seeing specialized agents acting autonomously and very successfully at the moment. Maybe we're standing on the brink of AGI, artificial general intelligence. What we can say with some certainty is that the capability of AI is going to keep on increasing and jumping rapidly. So what happens when AI can step into those unknowns, can use its vast corpus of knowledge, experiment, learn, evolve, adapt far, far quicker than any human can? Does that mean your agency, your ability to give it a go, does it become useless? No. It's exactly the opposite. Because in that AGI world, it's the equivalent of humanity walking into the biggest room of broken computers ever. No one's going to have the answers. Everyone's going to have an opinion. They're all going to be conflicting. And expertise isn't going to remove that uncertainty. So when you find yourself in that position, when the answers have run out for you, remember, waiting for certainty is a trap. Don't wait, just start. Thank you.